Once you've got some raw measurements on site, we're now going to do some on-site editing. So this is while you're still set up your laser, nothing's changed, you haven't disconnected anything, you're still able to take measurements, but what we're going to do is just clean up some of the data and start doing some of the editing whilst we've still got all of the dimensions and data in front of us to be able to check to. So what I'm going to do is change all the colours of the lines I've just taken, make a key or a code of whatever you want to keep your data as, but this just allows me to understand what each line is and not get them interfered with each other. Using the filleting tool and the extend tool, I'm just going to connect everything together. Then rotating to whatever worktop edge I want to work to, I then start adding some center lines for my hob and my sink, making sure you rotate to the correct line. Whatever line you want to work on, you rotate to that first, and you can see what it does is that everything from it will be perfectly 90 degrees to whatever you rotate to. I'm now going to start adding some overhangs, whatever is specific to your job. So in this case, we had a 45mm worktop overhang from where I measured and a 20mm on the end panel. This is why it's really crucial to keep your colours different, because then obviously I know which ones are what, and obviously how much to overhang on each side. Now I'm going to start adding my hob in. So rotating to that front worktop where the hob needs to be perfectly 90 degrees. I'm now going to use the offset tool to create a hob space. That first 12mm is just showing where the back edge of the hob needs to start. And then now I'm creating my hob dimensions from the center line out and connecting them all together. Really crucial here just to check that you make sure that your box is square and that everything is in the right location. Check where it's located to your front of your worktop. Check where it's located in the rear of the worktop, ensuring that you've got enough gap at the rear for, say, upstands or splashbacks. And make sure that you check measure this in real life to make sure that it's in the location you want it to and it's not going to foul anything. Now for our end panel here, what we're going to do, this is a tower end. Obviously this is going to be in front of you, so it will be really easy for you to see what's a tower and what is not. So obviously we now need to come inward of that and create a line for the edge of our worktop. Now anything past this data point that I took here needs to be polished, because that data point marks the end of the end panel. So what we need to do is create a point where we can actually take the data from. Use the segment tool to erase the segment that we need to disconnect. And then we need to redraw a segment in, and what that's done there is just split that line into two. So it allows us to keep one part of it blue and one part of it red, which indicates the red part is obviously what indicates that what needs to be polished, and the blue is what needs to be rough cut. Now we're going to start drawing in the sink. So rotating to your sink front edge. Once again, first thing you need to do is make sure you're rotated to that edge before you do any manipulation of things like sinks, hobs, holes, anything like that. So once you've rotated, now you can start drawing in your sink to whatever you've got on site. So in this case, I've taken the outside dimensions of my sink and then I work inward. So coming off that center line and coming off the front edge of wherever I want to locate the sink, I will then draw the outside dimensions of that sink. Basically, in essence, creating a really good location to measure from in real life and on the drawing to make sure that you've got the sink in the right location you want. I then measure how far the width is around until the inside of the sink and draw that in. So at the moment we're still not finished in terms of where our worktop's going to finish, but we've got a good point of data to measure to in real life, make sure that the two pieces of data are lining up, and also to make sure that the sink is correct or correctly drawn in this case. Adding in the center bar, because this might be really crucial for tap locations. colouring it in a way which isn't going to get confused with the other data. And now I'm going to draw in my overhang, which is going to be our finished sink location and finished cutout location. Two ways of doing the radiuses. You can either offset the radius in the direction you want by how much you want, and that will automatically work it out, or you can fill it with the custom radius that you want. Changing the colour of this to a polished cutout, because that's what the data we're going to need in a little bit. And now adding a drainer groove. So I've already got these loaded in the drop-in folder. You'll see that you've got your drainer grooves, power sockets, everything like that. In this case, just drop in your 5 groove to the line or the edge that you wanted to go into and extend them into the correct location. Now for the tap hole, ensuring that the center of your tap isn't going to clash with the back end of your sink is really crucial. So I'm just using lines and dimensions to basically make sure that tap is in the location I want. In this case 15 mil, that the hole doesn't start 15 mil until 15 mil beyond the back of the sink. So now to check measure your sink location. Obviously you now need to try and convert your actual dimensions that you've got in front of you to a point on the tablet. So what I do here is extend lines through, because the easiest way of doing it is to basically measure from point to point. So I basically measure out the on the tablet a point that I want to measure in real life, and as accurately as possible I try my best to replicate that from the tablet to real life, just to make sure that everything is in the location I want it to be. Now for your walls, in this case we're going to do upstands on this little drawing. So what we do is we allow 10 mil on the walls. Now this end here is an open end panel, so if we left that 10 mil gap, once you put the upstand over the top there, you'd have a 10 mil gap on one edge which you'd be able to see. So what we do is we do a little notch here, which we basically use 3 data points. We use a 50 mil, a 1 and a 10, and basically create this little notch shape by adding them all together and basically returning that wall down to 1 mil where it needs to be seen, and then back to 10 mil to allow the guys to easily fit. Making those data points, what we do then is remove them and use the segment tool to join them together. If we were just to fillet them right now, what that would do is potentially run at a completely different angle, and what it won't do is it won't join up correctly. So the best way to do it is use your segment tool, running along the back edge just to make sure that the wall isn't bowing too much anywhere, and if it does, then you can just add another little data point in and work out from that. Adding a joint in now, so once again rotating to the correct angle you need to, in this case rotating to the sink to then be able to do a perfect 90-degree line. If you see here, when I rotate to the hob and then do the line, you can see how far out that is. So this is where it's really crucial. You rotate to the correct joint line is what you and then your joint will be perfectly perpendicular to where you need it to be. Colouring that in. You only want to change the colour to the seam colouring once you're finished with the data, basically. Now for backsplashes and upstands. Backsplashes, if you're doing a custom sizing, you don't want to do splashbacks in this way, but for upstands, this is a really simple way of doing it. So what you're going to do is use the backsplash tool, and it is basically you click 2 points, the 2 ends of what you want, or the length that you want, and then it will create a backsplash of whatever size you wanted, and it will basically create it from those 2 points. So in case of walls, if you're just doing edge to edge, what you would do is click your 2 complete outer dimensions and then click away, and then what will happen is that will create a 100 mil or 140, whatever you want, upstand from that point. This scenario we're doing a sill, so what we've done is we've clicked the 2 outer parts of the sill, made our backsplash, and then what we're doing is now just altering that to how we want it. So after we've done our undersill, I've just extended 2 lines down. They're only temporary data points, we don't need to worry about them, but what we need them for is just to give us a contact point, basically to make sure that we can actually get the backsplash in the correct area. So you can see, clicking the 2 points we need, I'm just moving this out of the way slightly just to keep making sure that the data isn't kind of connected. So once again, last 2 points, backsplash, click OK, click your 2 data points. You can see that one didn't go quite in the right location. Ensure that they do go in the right location. They can be really fiddly. Take your time, and there we go. There your 100mm upstands all the way around. We're going to probably need to do a little bit of editing on that just to get the sizes we want, but in essence that's how you do that. What I'm going to do now is just go around and just take off a couple of set measurements that we know that we need to take off, where they join into corners, things like that, removing excess material so they don't have to do it on site. And then final thing we're going to do after we've done all of this data manipulation is just change the colours, ready to know which ones need to be polished, which bits are basically being seen and what isn't. So in this scenario, everything on top will be coloured and the open end will be coloured as well. The secondary profiles I only use as a joint location, so they know that those are going to be jointed up against something. And then that should be your finished data, ready for you to walk away. If everything's lined up and you've taken all data you need, now's time to pack up and get ready for your final editing, which will be away from site.